Hey, this is Yusefaltahir and my channel. Peace to you, may God save Serbia and Syria. And somebody had messaged me, um, and I promised to get back to them. And I asked them if I could read what they said back in full. And this had started off in comments, so I don't think there's any anonymity there. I think we should give credit where credit is due. So here it goes. This is master83236. He says, this is my original comment, so you can comment on it. Just war is a Western concept. I agree. It's Augustinian. There is no such thing as just war in principle. I agree with you, though. To cowardly stand by and do nothing when the innocent suffer because you're worried about your salvation is reprehensible. I totally agree. In those situations, it is a choice between evils that the fallen world can force you into. The best you can do is try and not kill the person, but stop them. Violence is always evil, um, even when it is used to stop a greater evil. The canons say that if you kill a person, you should be kept from the chalice for 3 years. You also cannot be considered a martyr if you die fighting. However, violence is sometimes is a necessary evil. Would you agree with this? Yes, but I originally typed back to you, yes, but. Um, Let me answer this first. There's economia. I mentioned that to you. Um, so yeah, even people returning from war, they're held from they're held from the chalice, they're held from taking the Eucharist because they took a life, and that does mean something. It does mean something to take a life. It doesn't matter if they're right in doing it. Save the innocent. I would say sometimes it actually is a righteous act. But as an evil that the person dies, yes, it's always death is the enemy. Death is the outcome of evil. It is evil in itself. Death is. We would say death is even a sin. Even when a martyr dies, it's not his sin. It is the sin of the world. The fact that there is death. It misses the mark. Um, but through the blood of the martyrs we have conquered. Now, um, there's economia, so I mean, we're not waiting 7 years for people to be catechumens anymore. We're not. I mean, I don't think they would have withheld the chalice for 3 years for people returning from war. Uh, there's economia. And I forget the opposite word of it too. There's the house rule, and there's being strict. So there's the loosening and the binding that we are given. What you loosen on earth shall be loosed in heaven. What you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. We do have cases of the Maccabees, though, where people died in their saints. Um, so it's there were warrior saints, definitely. Um, and then we do have people like Saint Moses the Ethiopian, who is it's kind of funny. Some of the black Hebrew Israelites point to his icon and say, "Oh, look, see, Moses was black." It's like, no, that's a different Moses who who read the passage, "Those that live by the sword shall die by the sword," and was a raider. You know, he would kill people and steal their stuff. Part of band of raiders, until he became a Christian. And when the raiders were coming to destroy Skeet, I believe it was Skeet Monastery, where the Desert Fathers were at, he sat down and they said, "Well, why aren't you leaving with us?" And he said, "No, those that live by the sword shall die by the sword. My blood will be a witness to them." I'll go on in the second paragraph. He says, "I am aware of economia, which applies with all canons like that, because it's up to the confessor to apply it in a pastoral manner. Exactly. Um, the point was to show the church, while it doesn't condemn people who go to war to defend others, it never justifies violence in any sense. Absolutely. Because but recognizes that this fallen world sometimes pushes us to an evil out of necessity. Absolutely, very true. Personally, I pray that I can hold on to my pacifism in the face of terrible situations, and by God's grace that I would not have to resort to violence. However, it is it is for selfish reasons, like to save my own soul. What is the point? If it's for selfish reasons, like to save my own soul, what is the point? That's correct. You will lose your soul, actually, I believe. That's why when people say, well, I can't, like the Quakers, well, if we go to war to defend the widow and the orphan, we won't be, we'll be defying God, we'll go to hell. It's like, well, that's the most Christ-like thing. Let me go to hell so I can save others. And there's many meanings to the word, meaning saved. Or many applications, I should say. So I totally agree with you. Um, as for your wish to go off and fight for our Christian brethren in Syria, well, you know the cost of violence better than I, so there's nothing I can tell you about what that does to you personally. Yeah, it's very destructive. All I would say is that if you go through with going to Syria, look for other things that you can do for people before you pick up a gun. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be too late. Help refugees, get people out of the country, inform the world of what's going on. I try to do that on here, but it seems that no one listens and everybody condemns. Of what's going on in Syria from the ground. That I can't do, but Syrian Girl is doing that. This isn't like World War II where it could have gone either way. Western and Muslim world are bearing down on Syria and are going to win because Satan is the prince of this world. I just don't see how it can be accomplished by taking up arms against the beast. Again, if you think I'm wrong, then explain. Of course, I'm naive, but thank God for that innocence is I still retain. Praise God. So yeah, I disagree. I think you should still fight the fight even if you're going to lose it against evil. If it weren't for Charles Martel, who kicked the Muslims out of France, if it weren't for the Reconquista of Spain, we might not have a. People say the Western Renaissance came from Islam. It came from kicking the Muslims out. And those Greek sources that were supposedly lost to the West, it's because Islam swept with such speed across North Africa and took over a vast swath, majority of the Byzantine Empire, and through Persia and all the way down into India within basically 100 years. Is that we had the West had no longer had access to anything. So let me reread to see if I World War II that could have gone either way. I think if you were to look at the Muslim conquests, how fast that spread, you would say, well, it's inevitable. We can't. We should be good dhimmis. It was hold. A lot of times it was losing the battles, fighting a bloody battle and losing it to to impede the advance of the enemy that actually saved many others. And they would, the army would limp forward, but would be a greater force, and it could be fought at another battle. Maybe that battle would be lost, but inch by inch, slowed this huge locomotive down. And when it got to Charles Martel, he said enough's enough, and he he kicked them out of France. And then when they were in Spain, the Spanish kings fought against them and drove them out. And it wasn't until 1492 that the Reconquista had fully taken place, which coincided with Columbus running into the New World, which is a turning point in history. Obviously, the Muslims were at the gates of Vienna. At one point, they were driven back. Islam is something that needs to be fought, because it is of the Antichrist. It is the beast. It is an Antichrist. So I think it needs to, when it gets that aggressive, it needs to be fought. And remember, the Reconquista was even helped by many Muslims because they were more relaxed Muslims. They were willing to coexist. It was the other branch coming up that was more radical, where they said, we'd rather live under Christian rule than live with these people that fought them off. And pagan and Christian in North Africa had banded together to fight the Muslims because they knew it was coming. There was a woman called the Soothsayer who held them off, and I believe only through treachery was she defeated. I think she held them off for about 3 years. She held off Ali's army, and it had gotten too big, and they had to retreat, and then they had to come back, and it was a back and forth type thing. But it was the Byzantines always giving. I mean, again, I could go on and on about this, but yeah, I basically 85% agree with what you say. But I think when you say, well, it's a lost cause, no. Again, if Damascus comes under Mujahideen rule, you're an Orthodox Christian. Ignatius IV is there. That's one of our holy sees. That's one of the holiest of holy sees. Even the liturgy in Constantinople, it's unfinished. One day we need to go back to Hagia Sophia and refinish that, because the Muslims rode a horse up on the altar. They don't respect us. They do respect force, though. This is something that I know. And yeah, when you're Christian, you reflect upon a violent life. It does give you nightmares. Some of which I had tonight because I fell asleep. Peace to you. May God save Serbia and Syria. And had only the Western media not lied about Serbia and Syria. And those who say, oh, no, watch this documentary, you're an apologist for Archon. My views on Archon have changed. But none of my view on the Balkan War or the Serbs, or how it began. Yes, I agree there should be many people who should be saints before Archon, and maybe not Archon, but the Muslim aggression is coming, and we need to stop it, just like the communists. They need to be stopped. I mean, it's not true that, Christianity always flourishes under persecution. It's never going to get crushed out from persecution, but it's not factual to say that yes, Christianity was much better under communist rule than it was under Tsarist rule. It may have been purer, but again, this discussion could go on for hours. So if this video wasn't sufficient for you, please send me another message, or if I didn't address something that you would like me to address, please send me a message. I'll make another video. It's Yusefaltahir. Peace to you. May God save Serbia and Syria. You, though, to cowardly stand by and do nothing when the innocent suffer because you're worried about your salvation is reprehensible. I totally agree. In those situations, it is a choice between evils that the fallen world can force you into. The best you can do is try and not kill the person, but stop them. Violence is always... Hey, this is Yusefaltahir on my channel. Peace to you, may God save Serbia and Syria. And somebody had messaged me, and I promised to get back to them. And I asked them if I could read what they said back in full. And this had started off in comments, so I don't think there's any anonymity there. I think always evil, even when it is used to stop a greater evil. The canons say that if you kill a person, you should be kept from the chalice for 3 years. You also cannot be considered a martyr if you die fighting. However, violence is sometimes is a necessary evil. Would you agree with this? Yes, but I should give credit where credit is due. So here it goes. This is master83236. He says, this is my original comment, so you can comment on it. Just war is a Western concept. I agree. It's Augustinian. There is no such thing as just war in principle. I agree with... I originally typed back to you, yes, but... let me answer this first. There's economia. I mentioned that to you. So, yeah. Even people returning from war, they're held from the chalice, they're held from taking the Eucharist because they took a life. And that does mean something. It does